So today we're gonna make a sample beat using trap drums. But in the meantime, there's one important announcement. It's Super Bowl time, baby! Bring on the GOAT! What's good, y'all? It's your man Sight back on the MPC Touch with a 2.0 walkthrough on how I put a beat together. Recently on one of my beat videos, I got a request to use samples more, but with some, I guess, Lex Luger trap style drums. So that's what this video is going to be. Last night I was just digging around online, looking for samples. And for all you crate diggers out there, I used to have a record collection. I had to let it go. Be easy on me. You know, it's not easy to lug about 2,000 records around. So long story short, when I got down to Georgia, when I moved down here, I couldn't bring all my records with me. So I ended up selling my turntable, selling a lot of my equipment, and just slimming down to just the MPC Touch. And the good thing about it is there's a lot of record collectors on YouTube that digitize their records and they put it on there. So it's pretty much the same thing as, sampling it yourself, except you can scrub through it pretty quick. So I found something online, and that's what's on the screen right now. Basically, this particular record, I was just digging through 60s instrumental, what's the search, 60s instrumentals. And I'll use that a lot because you can find good elements within those samples without a lot of vocals. Also, 70s instrumentals tend to be a little funky, a little disco, and just weird. You get the same type of sounds with that. So 60s is really cool because you'll get some really good diversity. You'll get like some good strings, some guitars, drums, things like that. This one, I don't know what genre it is, but there's a lot of guitars in it. So I'll just go through and show you what I found. When it started out, it's like a little guitar sample. So I listened through it. It got a little more interesting. But still, not kind of like street hard type of sound that I'm looking for. I wanted something with some drama. So I kept scrubbing through and I got to, was it about the 120? Well, I think it was about the 128 mark, but I played at 124 so you can hear where it leads in. Yeah, that's nasty right there. And that's all I needed to hear. So I said, okay, now we got something to work with. As soon as I heard it, I knew I wanted to snatch something from it. But the issue I was having with the second part of it, I mean, there were a lot of drums in it, like a lot of cymbals. But I listened closely to my speakers, and the left side was pretty much all just instruments. I mean, as far as like the horns and strings, and the right side was, I think, more of the bass line and the drums. So all the drums were panned right, which is dope because you can sample it, split it up later, or you can sample it mono. But I chose to split it up later and take out some elements. So let's get into that. All right, so I sampled it in two parts. And I heard something there like a breakdown. So I said, all right, I'll save that for later. I need to find what I'm going to use for, actually, let me take this screen off so you can see it. I said, what am I going to use for my main loop? So, as I listened through it, that part at the end, I did like. This part right here. Okay, so I knew I wanted to use that. So what I did was I chopped it up. I made it mono for one. I made it mono so I could take those drums out, and I knew I could work with that horn loop and with the guitar in there a lot easier without the drums. So yeah, I basically sliced that up, put it on the pads, and I had so I like that. I did keep this part stereo because I did like the way the cymbal hit. I felt like it added some drama and some texture to it. But yeah, I kept the other parts mono, just the part without the drum channel. And first I came up with the breakdown because that was the first thing that that kind of clicked to me. So I came up with the rhythm I had in my head was so I was counting it down in my head as I'm making it. And when I started adding drums to it, I actually said, you know what, I'm going to take a break on this. I have the rhythm down. I don't have the drums down the way I want yet. So I'm going to go and make the main loop now. So I went back to the original, played these out, and it was like, now the tricky thing with these was each one was 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 2 bars per piece, and it played a little uneven originally. So what I had to do was go into program edit to each sample. Other than the first one was completely on beat, but the second one, see, I turned the warp on, and on the second, third, and fourth, I turned the warp on. You can see the stretch is different on each one. Well, actually, I don't know if you can see it on this screen. Let me see. You can only see it on the touch screen. On the screen, you're not going to be able to see it here. I actually turned the warp function on for samples 2, 3, and 4, and I changed the percentage from 100 to 104 on this one, 102, 102. Now the reason I had to do that is because each one of those wasn't lining up properly. So what's dope about the 2.0 software with the warp feature and real-time time stretch is you can actually just go in and adjust how long each sample is stretched on the fly. So if you have one part that's supposed to be 2 bars, but it comes in a little faster and it's not looping properly, you can just stretch that particular chop out, which is super dope. And just stretch that chop, go to the next one, hit warp, stretch that chop out, and it worked out perfectly. So I was able to get the loop, right on beat. All right, so after that, I liked the way the sample was going, and I decided that I really wanted to put in a bass line at that point because I already knew how I wanted the bass line to go. So I went with just simple 808s. Now these drums I actually took directly out of the MPC kit, the Akai trap kit that comes with the MPC Touch. So if you have a Touch, a Live, or an X, and maybe even the other ones, I'm not sure, but they come with this trap drum kit, and it has some pretty good sounds. I mean, they're kind of generic, but trap drums are generally generic. I mean, you can customize them, but for the most part, they're pretty straightforward and simple. So I went through and I found a whole bunch of drum sounds that I liked. I'll run through some of them. This little hi-hat, open hi-hat, this kind of like quick drum roll. Classic 808 sound. Some claps. And I like that wood block sound. I tossed that in there too. A reverse cymbal, which, you know, as I showed you guys in a previous video, I use reverse cymbals to kind of build drama before the turnover of the loop. And I don't think I used that snare. And there's a wood block again. Now this was kind of like a riser sound that they had in there that I dragged over. So I just put some reverb and delay on it, and that was good to go. So next step was to add the 808s, and I just basically took that 808 sound that I had, put it on 16 levels with the tune on pad 4, and I played it. I think it was like I just followed the melody, so it turned out like this. Boom. So you had that situated. Then it's time to just start putting drums in there. And you know, with the trap sound, I usually start with 16ths. So then it was time to start stacking those snare drums, the kicker snare drums. Now, with the snares, first I'll just go through and do one pass, you know. And then I went back. I wanted a little more drama, so on the fourth snare, I used that clap on top of it. So sometimes I'll just sneak, you know, claps or like longer tail sounds underneath the snare to give it, you know, make it more interesting. So it's almost like a percussion underneath it, but I like the way that, you know, the reverb clap sounded underneath it. So it just added some cool drama to the beat. So now I'm booming, you know, I got a pretty good loop going, and I'm like, okay, let me go back to that breakdown that I had the framework for. Once I had the loop down, play with the metronome so you can hear the beat. Boom. So that was that. Same thing. I knew where I was going with the 808s with it. I just, again, 16 levels with the 808 sound and came up with this. Now, when I played it going from that back into the main sequence, it sounded a little choppy, so I knew I was going to have to add some stuff to make it match with the original sequence. And I'll just play it before I added the drums. See, it's too choppy going into that next sequence. I went ahead and added some drums to it. Now that's when I brought that riser back as a turnaround going back into the next sequence. It still didn't sound all the way right though, so I wanted to add a little more kind of chaotic sounds in there, because this breakdown is meant to just really charge up the beat, and it's just kind of like a rev up for the main sequence. So I added the clap on certain parts, and also this kind of roll. So I felt like that added, some interesting texture to it. Yeah, once I had that on there, I felt like, I had a 1 and a 2 sequence, like a breakdown, then the main sequence. But I usually try to have at least 3 sequences. And the reason I do that is because I just don't want the beat to get too repetitive. So it doesn't have to be fancy. What I did with this one, I actually kept the same. I just duplicated the verse. But instead of having the full drum pattern, I kept the 808s, and I just used that wood block as a snare instead. I also threw that open hat in there. So I thought that was cool, but I wanted to distinguish it a little more from the main sequence. So I went and found another sample on YouTube. It was the beginning of a song, and it was kind of like that. I don't know exactly who the artist was. I'll go back and check it later. But basically, it was like that James Brown back and forth talking to the crowd. They sounded like this.
Hey, man. Y'all ready?
And that's with the delay on it. Without the delay, let me take that off just so.
Hey, man. Y'all ready?
And that's just that kind of, soul sample back and forth, a lot of producers use that type of feel back in the day, whether it's, Premier, Pete Rock, but that kind of talking to the crowd with the live voice, it's just a classic kind of feel. So I wanted to add that into the beat to just give it a little more texture, and I put a delay on it, so it sounded a little more eerie to go along with that sound. So it ended up sounding like this. So next I was like, let's see what this sounds like going into the breakdown. Woo! Yeah. See if that goes into the verse. Yeah. So that was it. That was it. We was on it at that point. I know it's simple, straightforward, but I just wanted to show you guys my process for putting samples together. I mean, it's just one kind of workflow, but you know, I like the way it turned out. I thought the beat, you know, was hard. It kind of reminded me of some of my old joints I made back in the day, but with that kind of new vibe with the trap drum. So came out, you know, pretty official. So if you guys like it, like and subscribe. You know, send me some comments, give me some feedback on what you guys think. And you know, if there's other type of beats you guys want to hear, you know, said in previous videos, I really try to expand my catalog and you know, try different types of projects. So if you have other recommendations, or if you just want to hear more beats like this in this, you know, style, I'll keep cranking them out for you guys. So I appreciate all the feedback, all the new subscribers. You guys are the bomb. Once again, like and subscribe, hit that bell so you'll get the notifications when I'm back on. And I'm going to try to keep these coming for you at least once a week. So y'all have a good day, man. Peace.